Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you all here. Our speaker tonight is one of the best. She's a registered holistic nutritionist, an energetic speaker, and a captivating writer. She's been voted BC's favorite nutritionist, and she also spoke about the gut-brain connection at last year's TEDx conference. So if you haven't had a chance to look her up, I would highly recommend Googling that. So here to talk about stress and how it can help, how we can make it work for us, the amazing Lisa Kilgour.
And those were, you just gave me giant shoes to fill.
All true.
So let's hope. Who here is new to one of my talks? Who has been, oh lovely, I love a new audience. I think this is, I was asked a few minutes ago if I've been here before. I've done 3 or 4 here. And this is my second time talking about stress. But this is going to be a different take on it. Because we've been looking at stress kind of incorrectly for quite a long time. A study actually was released years ago, showed this problem. I'm going to leave this down here. So in 1998, researchers looked at 30,000 people and asked them, how much stress are you under, and had them rate. Are you under a little bit of stress, no stress, a lot of stress, where are you? And then 8 years later, they checked the public records to see who died. As you know, that's a way to see how it affects you. And the bad news is, those who said that their stress level was really, really high had a 43% higher risk of dying. But those who didn't, then they were also asked who believes stress is a problem and who believes that stress is harmful and who doesn't believe that stress is harmful. It was only those who believed that stress was harmful that died. Those who had high levels of stress but did not believe stress was harmful were fine, actually had a lower risk of dying than those who had the lowest, who self said they had the lowest amount of stress. So we're going to be looking at stress today. We're going to be looking at the body's reaction to stress. But I want you to keep that statement in mind, that it is our belief of how stress affects us that determines whether or not this reaction is harmful or beneficial. If today you have gone through a lot of stress and you're feeling really stressed out and you're like, yeah, but I've had decades of believing stress is harmful, we're also going to talk about how to heal from that. And I also understand that me telling you that your belief on stress is the problem isn't going to make it change overnight. You're not going to suddenly feel stress is great and wonderful. So that's the other reason why we want to make sure you know how to heal from it as well. Because stress is a part of our life. We don't get away with being a human being without stress. So that's why we want to start shifting how we look at it, and let's try to make it work for us instead of against us. So I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to try to get up here and like stress you into being happy and lovely and relaxed. Instead, I would much rather us take a look at what's going on in our body, what is the reaction, and how can we shift our perception of that. Does that sound okay? Does that sound like something fun? Because stress is very simply a natural life force. It's a part of our body to keep us alive. That is the purpose of it. And there are many different types of stress, and we tend to only think of the bad stress as the only stress, like a worry or a problem or a financial issue as being the main issue. But we actually have, our body is dealing with various kinds of stress on a day-to-day basis. Anything that changes the balance of our body is constantly looking for homeostasis, and anything that shifts us out of that is a form of stress. And the more tired your body gets, the more these other ones affect you, the more they bother you. So we have some regular day-to-day stresses. Exercise is a stress, temperature, as well as oxygen changes, when our blood sugar goes up and down, when we don't sleep, when we have toxins, when we have pain or inflammation, when we're dealing with an infection. So those are things that we don't always notice our body dealing with. But there is a purpose to the stress in our body, especially these smaller ones, and we'll look at that in a few minutes. We also have the main response that we think of, which is the fight or flight response, when we have that adrenaline rush, when we have our heart palpitations. That is responsible for our survival, and there's a whole cool way to look at it. We're going to look at that in a few minutes too. Emotions are a stress. Grief, sadness, fear, anger, worry, excitement, they all kind of put a stress on our body. And then when we grow, so when we are physically growing as children, when we are exercising and building our body, that is a stress on our body. And so is mental growth, emotional growth, spiritual growth. We want these, but they do play a role in the stress on our body. They're one more input. But there is a reason for stress. Stress creates progress. So this is one way to look at it differently, is that stress can strengthen us. When we have a stress on our muscles get stronger. When we have a stress on our bones get stronger. We can think of that in a mental state where it creates resilience. And we just need to help support our body through it. So in general, stress has always driven change, both in ourselves, but also as a species. Each generation changes by the stresses that it went under. And it alters our physical traits for the sake of survival. This is a part of evolution. And a lack of stress is a problem. So if you have a loved one and you want to do everything for that loved one so that loved one never has any worries or problems or stresses, I'm sorry, but you're not helping them. Stress is actually acute stress. So immediate stress is actually causes the brain to grow. It's incredibly important. And when we don't have any stress, we feel stagnant, depressed, and we feel like our life is unfulfilled. So we do need we need that adrenaline rush. We need that push. What we do need to find is the balance between those two. And many of us, and I myself, over the last 6 months, on 2 occasions, have gone out of balance in the stress state, and my body has gotten exhausted because of it. So we need to look at what does our body need, how do we reevaluate our individual approach to stress, and have a different perspective on personal stresses. I find when I'm looking at them in a way that's not working, then I start getting drained, and then I have to find a solution to that and fix my perspective. So and that's what we need to do as humans. We need to put stress in perspective, but we also need to know what our stresses are, and we also need to understand what the symptoms of chronic stress are, because some of these look like other things. Dizziness, especially if you go from laying down to standing up and you kind of black out, that's a sign of chronic stress. That's a sign of low adrenals, and we're going to talk about that today as well. And this one is a hard one to diagnose. My sister about a year ago was saying, oh my gosh, I'm so dizzy all the time. I asked her a few other questions. It became quite obvious she was dealing with adrenal fatigue. But she had gone through a bunch of testing beforehand and ruled everything out and said, there's nothing wrong with me. So we found the right thing. When you're tired through the day, when your answer to how are you is I'm tired. You feel burnt out, and you're sensitive to stresses. This is a big sign. I find when my nerves are really frazzled, when little things make me jump, when being in a car and a sudden stop makes me like shudder, being a passenger and watching something happen, and I can't go with the flow as well. That's a sign when my stress levels get a bit too high. Chronic pain can be a symptom of chronic stress and can be a cause of chronic stress. For any of you who are dealing with chronic pain, you can tell me better than I can tell everyone how exhausting that is and how hard that is to get through your day. So there's a double-edged sword with chronic pain. Unexplained weight loss. For some people it's weight gain. For other people they can lose 10 pounds without thinking about it. Dark circles or rings under the eyes, heart palpitations, cravings for salty food. One of the reasons that we get dizzy is our blood pressure gets low because our adrenals can't keep it up, and salt brings our blood pressure back up. So it's what our body is actually looking for in that moment of too much stress. So the solution to your salty food cravings isn't potato chips, it's sea salt on your food. And a lot of it in your water and your food is wonderful. Nighttime waking. So, and this can even be a second wind around 9 or 10 p.m. If you've ever been normally going to bed at 9 or 10 or 11 and then suddenly you wake up and you're like, I actually have energy. This is a giant, huge red flag that your adrenals are tired. This is like, don't pass go, just go directly to a naturopath and be diagnosed, because that can be a big deal symptom. I had it once like a week and a half ago and I was like, this is a problem. I need to fix it now. As well as late night snacking. So late night snacking can be a sign your blood sugar dropped overnight, partially due to your adrenals or high stress. Sometimes it is causing its own stress, that your blood sugar fluctuations are adding to the overall stress. So just knowing where your body stands today on stress and just getting to know its language. What are your symptoms when you're under chronic stress, when that stress is draining you instead of reviving you? And there's a lot of health issues correlated to chronic stress. And I'd like to change this to the belief that stress is bad for you, because it only related to these chronic illnesses if you have that belief. But things like heart disease, obesity, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and those two are connected. Depression, digestive issues, because our stress shuts down the digestive system, so that can cause more digestive issues. Inflammatory conditions like asthma, as well as accelerated aging. I had a job about 10 years ago that was not for me in any way, shape, or form. And even though I was only about 28, 29 at the time, I watched myself put on 5 to 10 years on my face just from that year. Thankfully, it reversed itself, but I hope. It was shocking. I was like, this really does happen. As well as premature death. And in that study I talked about at the beginning, where they watched those 30,000 people, the connection with premature death and stress is so high that one researcher has listed it as the 15th most common cause of death, and is only in the belief that stress is bad that is a problem. So all of this is with belief, and we're going to look at how belief affects your system. So we have a lot of new stresses that a couple generations ago we didn't have, even 20 years ago we didn't have, that are just adding to this body burden that we just simply need to balance as well. We have time demands that we've never had before. The idea that a 40-hour work week barely exists in the corporate world anymore. Technology, sometimes it works for us, sometimes it keeps us up all night. I have a run of 20-somethings, all with adrenal fatigue. I had them a couple years ago, and they all slept with their phone. It is incredibly difficult to take a phone out of a 20-year-old's bed. It's like their teddy bear. They look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, you can't be looking at that until you fall asleep. And a CBC did a study on looking at teenagers, and most of them are sleep deprived because they're on Facebook until there's nothing left on Facebook, or Snapchat until there's nothing left on Snapchat. And the color, that bright blue-white light in our eyes, keeps us awake. Increased environmental pollution, not necessarily here in Victoria. I'm originally from Toronto. There's a lot of pollution. Increased chemical use in our personal products, which Health Essentials, of course, is a wonderful resource to get natural products. EMFs and radiation, and I'm getting more and more clients with electromagnetic field sensitivities. I had one client in particular had to come before her appointment and check to see if, with her machine, to see if she could even come to the appointment. And my office doesn't have Wi-Fi, and still it was a struggle. And then we travel a lot, and that creates a stress with the time zone changes. Our body has trouble adapting to time zone changes. Think about the time before airplanes, how long it took you to go over time zones. Now we do it in hours. As well as the immune system stress that is created by going somewhere new with new pathogens, with new bacteria. That is also a big stress. So we have extra stressors. And then we don't eat so well. I'm a holistic nutritionist, so I'm going to talk about food sometimes. We have our standard farming practices, not necessarily the lovely farming practices that we have available here in Victoria. But in normal everyday grocery stores, food is picked before it's ripe and then shipped really far away. And it's really high in herbicides and pesticides and possibly heavy metals, including lead. There is a correlation between where farms that are close to highways. There's a lot of lead in the soil from our leaded gasoline. So there are some issues there. And the fact that we're not rotating our crops, we're not taking care of our soil, big deal. We're also over-processing our food. One of my favorite authors, Michael Pollan, always says that if you give a corporation the responsibility of making your food, they will not do it well. They will do it cheaply, they will do it quickly, they won't do it nutritionally. And of course we have the GMOs, and then we just simply have poor eating habits. We eat less whole foods than we used to, and then we take even healthy, lovely foods, and then we stuff it down our throat as we run out the door or while we're in the car. Our digestive system doesn't like that, so we could spend a whole hour on that. Chewing is the hardest thing I give any of my clients. Stop, relax, chew. Best thing you can do for your digestive system, best thing you can do for your overall diet, hardest thing I give anyone. So I think it's really important to sit here to talk about this slide for a few minutes, because we have two autonomic nervous systems, which just mean automatic nervous systems. We also have our central nervous system, which is not automatic. That's the one that moves your arms and legs. So I can say I'm thinking about moving my arm, and my arm moves. These are not run by our conscious system. We can't say to our body, okay, be stressed, okay, be relaxed. These are happening due to our reactions to stimuli. So we have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. The way I remember this is when you're under stress, you need sympathy, and that's your sympathetic nervous system. So our parasympathetic nervous system is the nervous system that manages our healing and our long-term health and wellness. This is what gives us longevity. In this nervous system, your immune system is watching for cancer cells and places that it needs to be healed, and viruses and bacteria, and making sure you're healthy and happy. In this nervous system, your digestion is working at its full power, and it is breaking down your food and making sure you absorb and assimilate your nutrients. This is the nervous system of healing, and this is where we generally need to be sitting most of our time. Not many people live over there anymore. Then we have the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is our survival nervous system. Every reaction that comes out of here is doing you a favor because it's keeping you alive. And it's stimulated to keep you alive under a physical stress, but will be stimulated in other forms of stress as well. And all of its reactions are there for survival. So it's really easy to remember this type of reactions, because all you have to think of, what would I need if I was being chased by a bear? What you'd need is for your lungs to be dilated so you can get more oxygen. What you need is for your blood sugar to go up, so for your liver to release glucose to bring your blood sugar up, so you have the energy to fight off or run away from a bear. You want your heartbeat to go faster. You want your blood pressure to go higher, so your muscles get the nutrients. You want your eyes to dilate. You want your digestion to be pushed down because you don't need to be putting energy there. You want your immune system out of the way as well because you need to just survive. So in this reaction, we have a release of adrenaline and noradrenaline, or epinephrine and norepinephrine, depending on who's writing it. Same things, they're just different names. And these create they happen immediately, and they give you superhuman strength if you need it. It can give you a fast reaction time. It can make you incredibly aware and perceptive. It can allow you to do almost anything. It's absolutely amazing. And then if your stress is longer, then cortisol is also raised. And in chronic stress, it's cortisol that's playing out more than adrenaline. In this nervous system, the downside is your body is using every single nutrient possible and available to keep you alive in that moment. The good side of this is it gives you courage. It gives you strength. It gives you motivation. It gives you an absolute joy of life sometimes. Like there's wonderful things that can come out of this. The issue in our current state is in how our bodies like to function is that we spend most of our time here until a big stress happens, and then we hang out over here for a little bit till the stress goes away, and then we go back. If you think about like a deer, I live on a vineyard and there's deer everywhere, so I watch them sit around munching grass, and then my landlord's dog comes out and starts chasing those deer. The deer go bounding off. If I were to find those deer an hour later, they wouldn't be watching for that dog, they would be eating the grass. And I know that because usually the next day they're back in the same spot, munching, relaxed and munching and eating grass, napping in my backyard. Most animals can flip back into this relaxed state quite easily. We are animals with this big thinky brain, and this big thinky brain likes to be in charge, and this big thinky brain also likes to think about stuff and worry about stuff and plan and make sure everything is okay. And so our body doesn't understand the difference between a bear chasing us and our memory of the bear chasing us. Every time we think about that stress, we get put back into this like it's happening right now. There's no differentiation. And what we tend to do, because we feel stress is bad, because we have this belief that stress is bad, when we feel that stress, we think, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm totally stressed out. I'm totally wired. What do I need to do? And we self-medicate with alcohol, with TV, with food. We find ways to release that stress. I invite you to start noticing when you're in this zone, watching for the times, like I don't always know I'm in the zone, I want to watch Netflix, and then I'm like, oh, I must be stressed because all I want to do is veg out and watch Netflix. That's my comfort. I have comfort TV. And there's certain TV shows that I'm like, I just need to watch that. I'm like, oh, I'm not stressed. And notice how you're actually feeling, and can you channel that into something else? Is there a way that you can take what your body is doing, that reaction, and say, thank you, body, you're attempting to keep me alive. Let me use this and channel it in another way. Because if we can see our heart rate going up and and notice that, we're on high alert, you have all of this new perception, we can use the sympathetic nervous system for courage, for direction. I'm self-employed, and my sympathetic nervous system likes to be triggered in the morning, so I use those moments to do all the things I'm afraid to do. I take that stress and channel it into courage and say, I can get so much done. And in the afternoon, I'm in a whole different headspace, so I don't attempt to be courageous when I know I'm not going to be there. And then, when we can respect this side, we can move over to the parasympathetic nervous system a bit easier, because we're not constantly thinking and worrying. We're going to also look at other techniques to help you move over here. I'm a naturally high-strung type A personality who didn't realize that I wasn't calm, even though a lot of people constantly said I wasn't. And I'm like, no, I'm perfectly relaxed. No, I wasn't. But I incorporated some of the techniques that we have later, and that literally rewired my brain, and I have a better awareness of where I'm at. And that happened fairly quickly with not a lot of work. And I'm stubborn, I don't like change. So just keep in mind these two nervous systems, and they're like a teeter-totter. When one is high, the other is low. So sometimes you can have I used to have a belief that if one was on, the other was off, and that still kind of happens, but it's more of a teeter-totter than an on-off switch. And so you can have sometimes a little bit of the sympathetic nervous system going, and have a little bit happening, but generally the on-off switch is a bit easier way of looking at it. But just keep in mind that when one is strong, the other one is usually dampened. And we want to live here where there's healing, where our body is taking care of our body for the future. So we have our tissues are healed, and our immune system is working, and our colds and flus are found. Those are good things. So our adrenals are an incredibly important part of the sympathetic nervous system, and they live right above your kidneys. The adrenal is where they got their name. Whoever named body parts sometimes weren't all that creative. So our kidneys are right here under our rib cage, and our adrenals are right above it. And these tiny little things do so many jobs. Because they are in charge of fight or flight, that stress reaction. They also are in charge of blood sugar because they need to be able to trigger that release of extra glucose. They also manage your blood pressure because they have to trigger that increase in blood pressure. So when they get tired, your blood pressure goes low. They're in charge of your wake-sleep cycle, your blood mineral levels, because calcium and magnesium are a part of contraction and relaxation of your muscles. Tissue breakdown and repair, and they can suppress or increase your immune function using cortisol. We're going to look at that in a few slides as well. So these little adrenals do a lot. What's not here is the fact that they also make a bit of estrogen, a bit of progesterone, and a bit of testosterone, helping women get through menopause and helping men go through andropause, but only if they're happy. There's a reason why we're not doing so well with menopause in the last few generations. So cortisol is so adrenaline and cortisol are both released by the adrenal glands. Noradrenaline is partially released by the brain and partially released by the adrenal glands. Cortisol is what is in motion when you're under chronic stress and can get really tired if it's being overproduced. A general release of cortisol is it gets low at night, so when you're sleeping you don't have a level, so you want to lie down and sleep, which is great. It starts going up right around dawn and is at its highest around 7, 8, 9 p.m. a.m. This is what wakes us up and allows us to get out of bed. Once we're out of bed and standing, that's when cortisol really gets released and allows us to be sitting up. All of you have some cortisol happening because you're able to sit up. Those with really low cortisol, the lowest I've seen, are bedridden. They can't really sit up. And even ones that of the same group of people that are healing, I can watch them when they're sitting up that they're having trouble keeping their eyes open. And it's because they don't have enough cortisol. So cortisol is high in the morning. This is why I use this to do all the stuff that I need to do. And then it starts lowering in the afternoon, which makes sense that we tend to get a bit more tired in the afternoon. And then it gets quite low once it's dark. If we looked at melatonin, kind of its opposite brother, it has exactly the same spike, but shifted, so it comes up at night. And when cortisol has its nice little arc, melatonin has a nice little arc. But if cortisol doesn't have this arc, melatonin also doesn't have an arc, which is why we have so many sleep problems when we desperately need to sleep. When you're under stress, the worst part of adrenal fatigue is not being able to sleep and just being exhausted all day and wide awake all night. So signs of adrenal exhaustion, and so there's two words that we tend to talk about: adrenal fatigue and adrenal exhaustion. What I relate to adrenal fatigue is the earlier stages, and adrenal exhaustion is when you can't work anymore. So a lot of these are kind of at that breaking point between adrenal fatigue and adrenal exhaustion. If you're thinking, okay, this is probably something I have, a naturopath is the place for diagnosis. Most medical doctors, unless they're trained in functional medicine or alternative medicine, don't recognize adrenal fatigue. Those who do see it everywhere. It's all depends on the training that a medical practitioner has had. Naturopaths have spit tests for your cortisol level and have a variety of ways to diagnose it. So when you're at adrenal exhaustion, you're generally tired for no reason. You have a lot of trouble waking up in the morning. It takes an hour or two to wake up instead of the nice 20 minutes. You feel run down. I feel my mind's overwhelmed. I just feel overwhelmed in life, and is always a time that I have to look at my adrenals. You have difficulty bouncing back from stress and illness. So you might be looking back and saying, this never bothered me before. Why is it bothering me now? It's your adrenals. Routine cravings for salty and sweet snacks. Your blood pressure wants the salt, and your blood sugar, which isn't balanced, is struggling, wants the sweet stuff. And then you can become dependent on coffee or anything caffeinated just to get through your day. A big giant warning sign is when coffee doesn't work anymore. When caffeine gives you no energy, that is a big warning sign that your adrenals are tired, unless you're just one of those people who can drink coffee and go to bed. Some people just don't get reactions from coffee, but if you have before and don't now, that's a big sign. So I just want to spend a couple minutes on looking at the mind-body connection, because it's really cool, and then we're going to look at solutions to this. There is a new realm of science called psychoneuroimmunology, and basically what this means is Western medicine or science has proven what traditional forms of medicine have known all along, which is our mind and our body are connected. The work of Dr. Candace Pert was a neurologist who found this connection, and she really took it really far. And she was doing this when like no women were neurologists, and she was coming out with these like new ways of looking at how our brain processes emotions. But what they found was that she found was that thoughts and emotions are predictors of whether or not our nervous system will function and how it's going to function. So we can think our nervous system into the sympathetic nervous system. And that there's a direct signal that stress goes from the brain and hits the adrenals and affects the immune system. So you can literally create health conditions simply from the stress in our life. Dr. Gabor Mate is a physician from Vancouver, and he has written an entire book on the personality types of illnesses, and it's brilliant, When the Body Says No, and it's looking at this directly. What she found as well is that the body is the processes emotions. So we literally store emotions in our body, and as we work through those emotions, our body functions better. So you can only imagine in the 80s in medicine how crazy that all sounded to her colleagues. But it's really proven to be true. Meditation is one of the best balances of the central nervous system and the immune function over time. This is research that Inspire Health, which is an integrative cancer care center out of Vancouver. There's an office here in Victoria. They they found all the research and they fully abide by. And it was spending 2 years working in the Kelowna office that I rewired my brain. As a part of every staff, as every work day, all of the staff at Inspire Health, it's in our contract that we meditate every morning for 20 minutes. We're paid for it, and we have to do it. They actually started making it less mandatory, but my office kept it mandatory. I worked there twice a week for 2 years. Within months of twice a week, 20-minute meditations, I suddenly went from high-strung to realizing the difference and being able to bring myself back to calm whenever I wanted to. What meditation does, it's not about being calm. It's about training your brain and bringing new neural pathways to calm. So every time your brain spins out and you notice and you bring it back, that's a new pathway to calm. So those of you with a brain that keeps spinning and think, I can never meditate, you actually can get the best benefit from it. And the research I saw at Inspire Health found that they looked at brand new meditators and people who've been monks that have been doing it professionally for 30 years. And the benefit of a single session of meditation was equal to both of them. You don't have to do it well. You don't have to be well practiced. You don't need to spend a lifetime learning how to meditate. You just need to do it once and you're going to get the benefit from it. So Dr. Candace Pert is another place. If you want to read more of this, her work is brilliant. So is Dr. Gabor Mate, who's taking this to another level. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's the finder of epigenetics, where the belief and the understanding that the environment our cell is in is what decides whether or not a gene is expressed. So we have some influence on whether or not our genetic footprint will actually be created in our body. So epigenetics is a really interesting field of study. If you have a genetic condition running through your family, it's definitely something to take a look at. So the way that stress affects the immune system is seemingly simple. When cortisol goes up, the immune system is pushed down because you want to get rid of the stress. The problem is under chronic stress, we use up these stress hormones. Now they can't modulate our immune system anymore. So now our immune system goes boom, right back up. And that creates, when our immune system is overstimulated and too big, then our immune system sends out inflammation everywhere, as well as it starts attacking our cells. So whenever we have an overactive immune system, we need the immune system modulated. It can create systemic inflammation and autoimmune conditions. So this is coming directly from the stress that we're thinking about, because we believe it's a problem. High blood sugar fluctuations can also cause that, so when our blood sugar's off. So let's look at some changes. What can we do? And I need some water. I've spent like a half an hour scaring you, and I'm sorry. Now we're going to get to the real stuff. So the best part of being a holistic nutritionist is the fact that I get to talk about lifestyle stuff. So I'm not just here telling you about research. I like to spend as little time as possible on that, because it's what we can do on a day-to-day basis that makes the biggest difference. As I go through everything, all you need to do is pick one little thing, one little line in everything I'm going to talk about, and that will make a difference. And when that's easy, pick another one. You never need to be doing change that is so dramatic and so huge that uses all of your energy and all of your willpower. Because if you're exhausted and you're dealing with adrenal exhaustion, that's not possible, first of all. And secondly, it's actually not effective. Though you simply find one little thing and you try it out, and then you try another thing and another thing, that's how you create change. That's how I changed my diet from all processed food with nothing healthy in it, a vegetable existed once a month in my diet, to what it is now. I did that with no willpower, and nothing was difficult, because I can't. I spent 2 weeks on a cleanse my entire life. It's just not possible. So the first one is blood sugar control. If you are dealing with energy ups and downs, if angry, hungry is a normal part of your day. If when you get hungry, hunger is demanding, you want sweets, and it changes who you are, you need this. This is the place to start. We need to balance our blood sugar. The best thing to do is place to start is having protein and fat with each meal. That puts a brake on the carbohydrates in your diet and stops them from getting into your bloodstream. Then, if you swap out those refined and simple sugars with fibrous carbohydrates, so whole wheat for white, honey for white sugar, that can make a big difference. And then you put a brake on it. You want to limit caffeine. You want to increase fiber. So I'm a big fan of adding. So you want to add protein and fat, you want to add some vegetables, and then you start removing. So make sure that stuff gets squished out. If you are a high anxiety person, if you're somebody who wakes up and has no interest in food, and you may have no interest in food until 6 or 7 p.m., and there's some of you here. Those of you who are breakfast eaters might think, no, it's how it is when you're under a lot of anxiety. Your digestive system hasn't started yet. You're really, you're just in that stress state. Having something with protein within the first few hours of waking up can get you out of that stress state and start your digestive system. What happens when you wait hours and hours and hours without eating? Your body is using cortisol to bring up your blood sugar, and that is one more stress on your body. For those of you who've seen me before, I'm not a big pusher of protein powders. I am not a big fan of using processed protein powders. There's a time and a place for them, though. And the time and the place is when you need an easy to digest protein and you don't want to eat. So one of the places is for breakfast. This Botanica just brought out this protein. It's a whole food protein. And it even has a short expiry date because it's actually food. Because food goes bad. Crazy. It's coconut and quinoa and fermented brown rice. It's entirely organic. No pea protein, no whey protein, and no stevia. So if you have a stevia issue. Just in general, it's something easy to digest and break down in those first few hours, especially, and if you don't want to chew and you don't want to eat, then that's where a protein powder really shines. Or if you're a smoothie person, then protein powders are really helpful. Other things to help balance your blood sugar is snacking on raw nuts and seeds. I enjoy chocolate a lot. So when I worked in an office and I would get the munchies at 3 or 4 p.m., I just added dark chocolate to my nuts and seeds, and that made me want to eat them. When I didn't have dark chocolate in my nuts and seeds, I would leave my desk and go and buy chocolate. But if I knew I could get chocolate, just had to eat the nuts and seeds with it, I was good. Licorice or holy basil tea is beautiful in the afternoon. I go back and forth between whether or not I have licorice or holy basil. Licorice has a sweetness to it. It's my favorite evening tea. And holy basil is also an adaptogen that helps your body deal with stress. We're going to talk about it a bit more. You want to bring up more water. You want to reduce alcohol because it's another stress, but also especially on the empty stomach. Sour and fermented foods can reduce sugar cravings and change your gut bacteria so they don't ask for sugar. And cinnamon does a brilliant job at balancing blood sugar. I talked to a man like 2 days ago who was on the brink of diabetes, and he just started eating a teaspoon of cinnamon on its own once a day. Like, that's just cruel. I don't know why he was doing that, but he said he liked spicy food, and that alone brought his blood sugar down. 3 months later, he didn't have a diagnosis. I don't recommend it.
And every time you have latte, just sprinkle some cinnamon on it.
Put it in food. Don't eat it as like it's really spicy. This lovely pyramid was done by a local herbalist, Cherry Parkinson, and this is a perfect balance of food. So we have fruits and vegetables as your base. Then we have some lovely plant proteins, grains and beans. We have some meats, but also good oils as the next step up, fermented foods and herbs and spices. Notice that there isn't 12 servings of grains as the base, like another we want fruits and vegetables as a base. So that alone can make a huge difference for your adrenals and for your blood sugar. You want to restore your circadian rhythm, that sleep and wake cycle. If you aren't sleeping, that's really hard, and I'm not trying to diminish what you're going through. I'm talking mostly right now to those of you who can sleep, you just choose not to go to bed until midnight. I know there's a lot of you out there. Those of you who are struggling with sleep, it is a big struggle, it is really hard. There is a solution. Keep trying, solution after solution, every sleep aid, every recommendation, and something will work. When I worked at Inspire Health, there was a story of one patient there who hadn't slept in 20 years well. And then she tried one more thing, which was wearing socks to bed, and she slept like a baby. You never know. So ways to help balance that circadian, the cortisol, melatonin, is regular bedtime. So you want to go to bed, trying to be in bed by 10 is a really good idea. No, it's hard. If you're getting a second wind late at night, you want to be in bed before that. And I know if you're dealing with it, it's like the only time you're awake, but it's draining you even further. You want to sleep in a dark room and try to keep it quiet. Blackout curtains, white noise. Unplug all electronics and turn off the internet if you can. At least keep the phone at the bedroom. Nice cool room. Another really important one is watching your screen time right before you go to bed. The backlight makes a difference, but also the white blue light of them. I am a laptop person. I live on my laptop. So what I have is a shifter that shifts the blue light into yellow and red light as the sun sets. And it knows what time zone I'm in and where I'm at, so it does it at right when my sun sets, and then it resets during sunrise. Makes a huge difference. Another thing you can do is get these really ugly yellow or orange goggles. They're welding goggles, and that changes all the light to this firelight, and that makes a big difference. And most of our phones nowadays have the ability to do that switch. It does make a difference. I used to find just before I went to bed, I'm like, oh, what's my schedule for tomorrow? And I go to my white screen calendar, and it's like, oh, that's how am I going to sleep? And now it's not so bright. Exercise makes a huge difference. It helps reset the adrenaline, the fight or flight response, and It helps grow brain cells. What they found is people who exercise, their brain worked better, they had a better resilience to stress, and it doesn't take a lot. Half an hour a day is all you need. And choosing some lifestyle practices. So as I said, you only need to choose one, and this is a list of ones that you can choose. Earthing, anybody heard of earthing before?
No.
It's when you ground yourself to the earth. Walking barefoot on the ground, best is walking barefoot in wet grass. Really grounding. Meditation is really helpful, 15-20 minutes a day or a couple times a week. Yoga, this one works so well for me, the morning sunlight. I have a door, the sun rises right at my house, and I find especially if I have to get up early in the morning, if I walk outside and get that light in my eyes just for a second, I wake up a lot faster. Nature, forest bathing, really does a wonderful job at calming down the stress hormones. Laughter, you can't be stressed and laughing. Absolutely impossible. There's laughter yoga because of it. Feeling of gratitude. The last time I went through a lot of stress, I was really having trouble coping. So before I went to sleep and when I woke up in the morning, I had to think, I gave myself a little rule of thinking of 5 things I was grateful for. And the simple fact that it was easy to find them really calmed my stress down, because no matter because we always think about the big terrible things that are happening, but when you're looking at gratitude, you're looking at little guys, and it's always they can be found, and that actually shifts your brain. We also need to heal our body, and I'm going to be talking about herbal adaptogens. Adaptogens are what our bodies traditionally used in traditional medicine as ways to heal the body. So adaptogens at their core allow the body to adapt to stresses better. I take them when I'm having trouble changing gears. So if I'm working on one thing and then like the change of the next thing is hard, or I go from one place to another and it's stressing me out. I'm a big giant introvert, so when I'm out and about and that is really grating on me, adaptogens really, really help. And they help in all forms of those input stress. It helps with changing time zones, changing schedules, everything. And so we're going to look at a few of those. The first one is Siberian ginseng. And this is a different kind of ginseng. If you've ever taken Korean ginseng or Panax ginseng, this won't do that. This isn't a giant stimulant, it's an adaptogen. And so it's going to give you energy but create balance. Helps normalize your immune system and your adrenals, and balances your endocrine system. More than anything, this helps with strength and endurance. So if you're an athlete, this is particularly good. And helps balance cortisol, your blood pressure, and helps with against radiation. Rhodiola. Whenever I read lists of who rhodiola is for, it always describes me. And when I take rhodiola, my first experience with rhodiola was when I was working in a call center and I was answering 200 calls a day. And at the end of the day, whenever the phone rang, I would look at it with just absolute dread and anger. Like, why are you bugging me? Because for the whole day, every thought got interrupted by a phone call. When I took rhodiola, within about a week, I remember looking at the phone and saying, oh look, the phone is ringing. How interesting. I wonder who that is. And I'm like, did I just say that? I worked alone for the last hour of the day, and that's when it always got really grating. So I was shocked by how well rhodiola worked. It's really cooling, so if you are a hot person, I'm 10,000 degrees normally, so it cools you down. Great for people with high blood pressure. Great for insomnia if you're a yang type. So the yang type, or yang, if you're Chinese medicine, I'm sorry, I just mispronounced it horribly, is if you are the type A driven personality and you can't get your mind to stop. That's what this works for. It's great for anxiety, for ADHD, both in children and adults. Great for athletic performance and endurance, and elevates mood. It just kind of like calms you down. And we're going to look at a few different options, but that's on its own as well. Holy basil, I used a lot when I worked at Inspire Health and I worked with cancer, because you can use, as holy basil was approved by our doctors to go with chemotherapy. But it's also beautiful. It gives you energy, but in a calming way. So it's going to let you get through your day a bit better. lifts and helps reduce the stress-induced depression, reduces brain fog, and it has like it's antiviral and reduces gas, so it actually helps other stuff. Supports your adrenals and lowers cortisol and lowers blood sugar. It's a lovely herb. Ashwang. I was pronouncing this earlier. This is an incredibly popular herb right now. Dr. Oz made it popular, and people just keep using it because it's worked so well. It's a calming adaptogen, as well as a longevity herb. So what it does is it calms your nervous system, and you can use it day or night. But because it kind of pulls you out of that stress state into the calm state, it stimulates libido, because guess what lives in the calm state, not the stress state, it's your libido. It supports your thyroid function. It really helps fatigue, and if you're dealing with, if your iron is really low, it's quite helpful for that. And it helps balance the whole endocrine system. And milky oat seed is a very forgotten herb. The best description of milky oat seed I've ever heard is that this is for people who are so frazzled they're crispy. So when your nerves are just on fire, when you're jumpy, I use this when like if people scare you and you jump really easily, or like for me it's driving. If driving is really bothering me, milky oat seed is what you need. Strengthens and nourishes. It's for nervous system exhaustion. It also helps with occipital pain, so if you get headaches here. It reduces any withdrawal symptoms. It helps with sleep patterns and supportive for chronic stress. So these are literally what I take regularly. In December, one of my, actually this one too. In December, my massage therapist, who also does cranial sacral, was doing a massage on my back, and she said, "Your adrenals are on fire." And I said, "Yeah, that makes sense." She's like, "No, it's 6 p.m. They should not be on fire right now." And that was the first red flag that I need to work on them. And as soon as she said that, I could look back and see all of the signs I'd been ignoring. So I started on the adrenal support, and within a month, my next appointment, she said, "Oh, your adrenals are fine." They weren't fine yet. I was just doing the right thing. And so this is a combination. So there's two options. So this adrenal support has the Siberian ginseng, the milky oat seed, devil's club, and sarsaparilla, and holy basil. And so herbs like to work together, so they create balance that way. And so the combination of the adrenal support tincture and passion flower, which is also my other heavenly thing. In my other job, I play in the local symphony in my area, the Okanagan Symphony, and I don't have any issue talking in front of you lovely people, but performing music, I have huge stage fright, except for with passion flower. Passion flower allows me to function. I wouldn't be able to play with the symphony without it. So this was my combination through the winter, was those two. There's also, you can also, if you don't like tincture, so the traditional way herbs are made is tincture. So what that is an alcohol extraction, and that allows all the good stuff to be taken out of the herb. Herbs don't like to be digested well as a dry herb. They like better to be processed into a tincture, and that's why traditionally that's what we always have done. Our body also likes the taste of the tincture, and that allows for some part of the healing. When our body tastes it, it's like, oh, I know what that is. You really like the tinctures that you like. Botanica, though, understands that not everybody wants to do a tincture, and compliance can be hard. So they also have phytocaps. So what these are is that tincture. So the herb is made into a tincture, and then all of the, I just got my 20-minute warning. Then all of the alcohol is removed from it, leaving just the concentrated but properly extracted herb. And the formulation is slightly different. So you have two options. This one, you only need to be taking 2 capsules twice a day, so it's a lot easier and easy for travel, and it doesn't have any alcohol in it if that's an issue. This one has the rhodiola, holy basil, ashwagandha, I pronounced it this time, and shashandra berry, and milky oat seed. They're slightly different formulations, but both fantastic. And whenever you see the liquid phytocaps, what you're getting is that properly extracted herb in a really easy to use option. They also have the rhodiola and ashwagandha on their own as well. Last but not least is we have their ferments. So they also have holy basil and ashwagandha in a fermented option. So now you're looking and saying, okay, now which one do I take? So the ferments are, they've used a SCOBY, like from kombucha, as well as kefir, and they've taken a tea of the leaves and fermented it with the SCOBY and the kefir, creating and it's a long ferment, creating a very concentrated fermented liquid. You only need about a tablespoon a day. I think it's 4 teaspoons, which is almost just a bit more than a tablespoon. You want to use this one. So you want to use the ferments when you have a weak digestive system. So the ferments make it so your body doesn't need to do anything to digest it. It fully breaks it down. It has all of the enzymes. So if you're dealing with leaky gut or a weak digestive system, if you have Crohn's, colitis, or any malabsorption issues, the ferment is for you. This is also a weaker version. So if you have a really sensitive system, or you're working with children or people on multiple medications, then this is the option for you because it's effective but a lot weaker. The liquid phytocaps are for anybody who just doesn't want to take a tincture. And if you really have you need a concentrated version because you have a really chronic disease, or if you're just traveling, the tinctures is for everybody else. So the tincture is kind of like the go-to, and then we have 2 options if that doesn't work for you. So the tinctures are really great for sensitive people because you can take a smaller dose. You can, the dose is 30 or 40 drops. You could start with 5 and see how your body likes it, and you also get to taste it. It's fast acting. It goes right into our bloodstream because our body knows it's coming. And then this is also really good for anybody looking for, who's using Ayurvedic principles or Chinese principles, because it has that flavor profile. So that's in a nutshell, the difference between those two. But we're at the end. So thank you. First, I want to thank you. Thank you guys so much for staying and listening and letting me talk at you for the last 55 minutes. I'm going to open up the floor for questions, and I want to stay here as long as you want for questions. I just want to let anybody who can't stay, I want to say thank you and say it's okay if you can't sit still any longer or if you need to go. But those of you who can stay, just start thinking of your questions. I also have my card up here. This year I've launched a free webinar series. Once a month I'm putting on a free webinar. All you have to do to join the webinar is to go on my website and sign up for my newsletter, and every newsletter has the webinars, and my next one is on adrenal fatigue directly. So we're going to get into how to know what your state of adrenal fatigue is. And when you sign up for my newsletter, you get the full list of what I'm doing this year, and I'm having a lot of fun, so I might continue them afterwards.
What is the date of that one you just said?
May 30th, I think. But if you sign up for it, I'll send you the recording. The recording has like a 48-hour playback that I leave up for usually a couple of weeks because I forget to take it out. But I make sure it's up for 48 hours. So grab my card if you're interested in that. And Lynn, did you want to say anything before we start the questions?
That's funny, I was just thinking, do I interrupt or not?
Yeah.
If anyone was late, this was all recorded, so you can actually watch it on our Facebook, Health Essentials Facebook page, and you'll be able to watch it for about 24 hours after, and then in the next few weeks it will be posted on YouTube. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great. So questions. This is my favorite part. So are there any questions? This is my favorite part, so please ask them. Yes.
What do you use on your laptop?
It's a free app called Flux. F.Lux.
Okay.
I was thinking, I wonder if I can show them the color. At the end when I take it down, it's not dark yet, so I can't actually show it. But you don't even notice it happening until when I wake up in the morning and open up my laptop, I can see it then because it's such a change. But it's so gradual. It doesn't, and you can turn it off if you're watching a movie. Like there's a movie button that will turn it off for 2.5 hours, so you don't get it. But honestly, you don't even notice it when it's just this lovely color. It's so much nicer. And it's free. And I looked into, why are you letting it free? Are you putting stuff on my website? And they like, are my computer to,
Right.
and they claim not to. There's a question at the back.
You know, a couple of years ago, before I even knew what adrenals were, I went through a really terrible burnout. And
It's really hard when you don't know that that's what's happening.
it was really scary, actually. I had really unrecognizable fatigue, and it was scary.
Yeah.
And then little by little I started to learn. But I learned about adaptogens, but I also learned that, and I tried taking some of them when I was in that state,
Yeah.
and I found it was too strong. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It can be, because your body is extra sensitive. So when you're in that burnout stage, using a tincture and starting really slowly can be really good, like a lot easier. A practitioner I work with, she was using a homeopathic blend, and she found that like the dose was 25 3 times a day, and she
Yeah.
could do 1 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to get through the bottle. It's just going to take me a while. So you have to. That's what's so nice about a tincture, is you can adjust it to where your body is at.
Right.
And it does work really well even at those lower doses, because then you're respecting what your body wants.
Right.
You're not stressing it out with
Yeah.
the solution of your stress.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.